Hi everyone, I'm Annabelle from BioBuzz. I'm super excited to have you guys all here today for another one of our Career Catalyst sessions as part of our Career Catalyst and Community Office Hours series. So these are weekly conversations designed to give you direct access to leaders across the life sciences who are building, leading, and shaping the future of the industry and who are here to help you navigate your own career path. And today's session is all about bridging technical execution with a broader mission to drive change. So we're thrilled to be joined by Roger Ouimet, who leads the Global Program and Project Management business area at CAI. Roger's career spans decades of experience managing large-scale pharmaceutical facility projects, while also playing a key role in shaping sustainability and ESG strategy on a global scale. So if you're curious about careers in program and project management, facilities or ESG and corporate responsibility, this is going to be a great session for you. Roger brings a unique boots on the ground and big picture perspective on how biotech infrastructure gets built and how careers in this space can evolve with purpose and impact. So we're going to be diving into some of the skills and leadership qualities needed to thrive in today's fast-changing biotech landscape and how cross-functional teams from engineers to compliance leads can bring new innovations to life. Before we do start, I do want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, biotech, for sponsoring today's session. Their hands-on training workshops have helped over 17,000 scientists level up. You can check them out at biotrack.com. I would definitely go on. Like I said, great resource for upskilling if you're looking into that. I also want to mention that today's session is part of the BioBuzz Talent Lab. So that is the part of this session. That's where a lot of the career catalysts are, where you can kind of find more of the resources. You can find community resources, job opportunities, industry events. So definitely get on there and join the beta testing of that at biobuzz.io. All right, now we can get started. I'm going to hand it over to Raj.
Okay, well, great. Well, thanks, Annabelle. I appreciate that. Really happy to be here and appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy days to listen to what some potentially old guy like me might be wanting to talk about in the pharmaceutical industry and a little bit about my career. But what I will kind of talk about, and I'll share a slide here in a moment, I'm going to spend the beginning of our discussion sort of talking about my career path and sort of how it has shaped me to today, and then I'll drive the second half of the conversation specifically in sustainability, which is one of my focus areas in life sciences. I'll kind of talk about what that means and how I'm working to apply that in the industry. And maybe the intent would be at the end of all of this, some of you might be inspired to kind of lay your own path, of course, but maybe some of the things I talk about could inspire you as well. So that's sort of the intent. We'll close, obviously, like Annabelle said, with some questions. I'll offer up some insight perhaps, and unless you guys throw me some real fastballs high and right, we'll see if I can still hit those when you send them my way. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then I will look for confirmation in just a sec that you guys can see it. So I am presenting a single slide about my career. Can you guys see that?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, great. So just want to kind of talk a little bit about my journey, right? So I'm born and raised in New England, and actually went to a high school very close to the Pfizer manufacturing plant in Groton, Connecticut. And one of my high school basketball teammates was able to introduce me to his dad, who was a PhD employee of the Pfizer manufacturing plant. And so I've always kind of been interested in pharmaceutical manufacturing and biotech, and really have always enjoyed that. I needed to fulfill a military commitment. I ended up going to the U.S. Naval Academy. For those of you in the Mid-Atlantic dialing in today, not too far from where I met Annabelle last month in Baltimore, just down I-97 down to Annapolis. And you can see some of the pictures from my life and my career that kind of have helped to shape me. A couple of my kids are in a kayak. I certainly love outdoor recreation. Although I walked on to the basketball team at the U.S. Naval Academy, I spent 4 years rowing there, and my kids have gained some of that love for outdoor recreation and water sports and things of that sort. And my middle son in the bottom right, he was born and raised when we were living in North Carolina, so he became a Carolina Panthers fan, but I'm still a New England Patriots fan. We happened to go to a game down there where the two teams are playing, so that was pretty cool. My wife's in the bottom there. I was just telling Annabelle before this call that we're going on a family trip back to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. That picture is taken in Gatlinburg. In fact, that was moments after I proposed to my wife there, and we got married there, and we're going back for a family vacation later on this summer. And then my last picture up there is my last command tour, about 2.5 years before I fully retired. And I was in Kansas City, Kansas, in charge of a unit that was responsible for all Navy Reserve logistics to the Far East. And so that was a really fun tour. But why was some of that important? Well, I gained through my Naval Academy time. I got a chemistry degree and put it to good use in the Navy in maintenance and engineering roles and in operations leadership roles. And that worked me through. And then in my latter stages of my career, I became a Navy planner. And there are a lot of synergies between Navy planning and the industry standard for project management and for program management, which is it's called the PMBOK, which is the project management body of knowledge. And there's very, very similar aspects to how you go about both. And I had an overlap of 23 years in the Navy Reserve while working in the civilian sector and beginning my civilian career. I worked at companies such as Novo Nordisk. I've spent 9 years learning pharmaceutical manufacturing there. In lean coaching, in maintenance supervision, and then ultimately in project management. And then later in my career, I went to work for their sister company, which is actually what brought me. I live in Cleveland, Ohio now, brought me to Excelia, and I was working to put their project management office in place. And so those sorts of things kind of worked really, really well along the way to shape my career. And you can see some of the experiences in the equipment, in the systems that I was responsible for installing, and some of the clients, since I've worked in my current role at CAI, some of the clients that I've had at the bottom for some of the projects and companies that I've put forth, kind of putting those equipments and systems in place at those client locations. I'm going to pause there for just a minute as it's summertime here in Cleveland, Ohio. I've got all the windows open in my home office, and I just heard my landscapers up front, and it will drone me out. So take me a minute. I'm going to close my windows so that when the lawn tractor comes by, my apologies. They didn't plan on coming today, but apparently I can hear them. They're going to work through that. But anyway, so that's my career. How it got me to today, being the director for program and project management, is a lot of those project and program management experiences that I've had have put together my technical expertise, have put together some of the relationship management that I've done. And I gained some significant experience in critical utilities, in environmental conservation. For example, at Novo Nordisk, I've been involved in trying to get their sites in LEED certification. LEED is a governing body for environmentally conscious building manufacturing. And so I've gotten the understanding along the way of how to really apply some of these factors. And then just last month, I finished my master's program. So a lot of parallels, right? I had my parallel civilian career. I was working through my Navy Reserve career. And then in the latter stages, I started working on my master's. My master's actually was in project management and operations. But one of the courses I took about 6 months ago was corporate social responsibility, CSR. And it really energized me. I could see how some of the systems and equipment experience, as it related to water conservation, as it related to carbon emissions reductions, and even as it related to people programs that I was a part of, really inspired me to get more involved. And in my role in the program management side of program and project management, I work with clients on strategy application, strategy development, and some of the best known companies in the world in multiple industries have learned to focus sustainability into their strategy because it can lead to exceptional growth. Now, I'm not going to spend, this session kind of driving home a lot of the points of sustainability, but I am going to kind of hit a high level and sort of try to keep it toward how I am getting involved in that. And maybe there'll be some questions along the way that bring up for you guys some thoughts on, well, maybe I can contribute in a similar fashion as well, right? So I'm going to touch on a few slides here. This is actually from my presentation that I gave in Baltimore. ISPE, if you're not familiar with it, it's the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineers, and MAST was the Mid-Atlantic Science and Technology Expo. Annabelle and I met at that expo, and she actually helped me with the article that was a sort of teaser in the weeks leading up to the conference that I was going to be presenting on this topic. And so it's really what brought us to today, where she thought it might be a good idea for me to kind of present some more of the information from that presentation to you guys as well. All right, so this is really going to be, like I said, high level. I've hidden a lot of the slides from the presentation just to make sure I'm hitting only the key points of it for you. But it's talking about corporate social responsibility. That's what that acronym stands for. And another way that it's looked at is ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. So companies put those together and they decide how they're going to remain profitable, how they're going to grow through what is called the triple bottom line, which is people, the planet, impacting profit. Back in the 1970s, sustainability started to gain traction and got sort of a trend across a number of different industries. And it was because many companies started to recognize that there was more to running their business than just simply the short-sighted view of profits. They needed to have potentially a little bit of a longer term view. And if you remember that slide I showed you about my family, I'm very, very interested in the Mother Earth and in the environment and the recreational aspects of that. And I want to leave a planet for my kids and their kids and their kids' kids that is going to have not a lot of, say, solar UV risk, the challenges with carbon emissions impacting our atmosphere. I want to work to help influence, in my small fashion, the industry and how folks go about dealing with that. So let me first touch on the people side of things. And people can have two aspects. First is external. Now, I used to work for Novo Nordisk. I spent 9 years working for them. So I have a kind of a deep-seated understanding and strong belief in not only what Novo Nordisk did, but how important social programs in general for a company are. A, because it helps their local communities, or it helps the world to be able to handle different diseases and challenges. Novo Nordisk is primarily known for its diabetes pharmaceutical manufacturing drugs, insulin and things like that. But there's also aspects of reputation that if a company is known for supporting foundations and research funds and other things of that sort, doctors might prescribe more from that company versus others. Patients will feel good about the products that are coming from that company because they have a good reputation. And so in Novo Nordisk's case, you can see a number of things that they're heavily involved in. They provide funding and they're partner with the American Diabetes Association, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund. I was involved personally in Ride for the Cure, in Walk for the Cure, and I remember an interview a few years back with Novo Nordisk's CEO, who indicated in the question from the magazine, why are you manufacturing insulin, but you're providing all of this research to ADA and JDRF? What happens if through that funding, diabetes is eradicated. Now you no longer have a business model. Wouldn't that be an awful problem to have, right? For a company that to be able to say, we helped cure this malady, this quite frankly, this epidemic of diabetes across the world, and they would just simply need to make sure that their product portfolio had other drugs that they were manufacturing for other diseases. And so that's sort of their focus, and why I think, hearing that from the CEO when I was working for them, it was just such an amazing feeling, and it really made me proud to be a part of that company as an employee at the time. Another thing is drug accessibility. You might be familiar, you may have heard the news plenty of times lately about the high cost of pharmaceuticals and drugs. And so there are companies such as Abbott, Novo Nordisk again, Eli Lilly, that have strong programs. And I just call them out because they're some of the best known, but there are plenty of others as well. They make grants available for low income folks to still be able to access the drugs that they're manufacturing, because they feel that strongly about the benefit to society of doing so. And then there's a couple of other thoughts. I worked for Exelia, which was a sister company of Novo Nordisk, and we would actively provide, we would usually send once a year 21 employees from around the world to this village in Kenya. We did Habitat for Humanity projects there. We provided medication to the village pharmacist, just to name a few things there that connected us. And Mallinckrodt, which is a manufacturer of both respiratory products as a division of Covidien, as well as they make contrast media for X-rays and MRIs. They give back in a couple of different programs that you can see there. So some really good aspects of things externally that companies are doing to get their reputation where it should be. And then there's some things internally that companies can do to attract talent. And this is where I want it to kind of hopefully resonate with you guys as you look to progress your career. And if some of these things are really resonating with you about social programs that a company is involved in, internal programs that I'll touch on here in a moment, these might be some great chances for you to look for those synergies between what gets you up in the morning and wants you to go to work, and hey, this company will really support my interests, and they're already culturally involved in some of these great things, and you might be interested in going to work for that company because of that, right? So DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion programs, veteran hiring, total compensation. So there's more than just pay. Of course, pay is important, but there might be bonus packages. There might be employee-owned stock. Those kinds of things. What's the ability for employees to really benefit from the overall success of a company? That kind of a thing. Having leadership development programs that might require some rotation through different types of roles or different types of locations, but sometimes those are going to help you to become a much more well-rounded and experienced employee. And then society sponsorships. My company sponsors me as a part of a couple of very key industry societies. ISPE is one, International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineers, and the other is PDA, the Parenteral Drug Association. So certainly a couple of great societies there. You can get involved, you can learn, and you can provide thought leadership, which is really, really important. And because that talent gets attracted to great companies like that and hopefully is retained, creativity, problem solving, coming up with new innovative drugs, these are all really, really great ways to contribute to profit. Now, the other piece of this is right around the time that I was finishing that course I told you about in corporate social responsibility, Time Magazine came out with this list in 2024 of their top 500 recognized most sustainable companies. And some of the criteria they had, there's an initiative called the Science-Based Targets Initiative that's looking to have a 1.5 degrees Celsius reduction in climate impact, or being involved in the Carbon Disclosure Project, reducing emissions, and they've already had success in doing so in 21 and 22, but maybe they have goals by say 2030 to be carbon neutral, or zero carbon emissions. Those are really, really aggressive, but still, there are some companies out there that have set those goals for themselves, and maybe a proportion of renewable energy, right? For example, now obviously I come to this with pharmaceutical experience, but something as simple as the Crayola factory in Greater Philadelphia, up toward Burke County in Pennsylvania. They bought an entire plot of land beside their manufacturing site, their main one in the U.S., and it's a complete solar farm. And all of that solar panel production of energy is funneled directly into their manufacturing plant, and it's helping them to utilize the electric grid in Pennsylvania less and less, right? So just some great examples of how some companies are doing that stuff. So this is the list. If it's a little bit hard to read, my apologies. The green circles I wanted to definitely focus on, again, from my perspective in biotech and life sciences. Illumina is a biotech company. They're 5th on the list. Sanofi is 7th. Novartis and Agilent are 17th and 19th. And then staying in the top 30, we have Novo Nordisk, which U.S. headquarters is in Princeton, New Jersey. And Merck and Company, they're headquartered in Rahway, New Jersey. Rahway, New Jersey as well. So some really well-known companies that are tops on this list. And number one, although it's not in our industry, is Schneider Electric. And so I kind of wanted to talk about what are some of the great things that those companies are doing. And you can see some of these initiatives. Rather than touching on the specifics bullet by bullet, I'll just pause there for a moment and let you see what Schneider Electric is doing. Look at how aggressive their goal for carbon neutrality is. That's this year, and they're on track to meet that before this year closes. They also focus on their supply chain, which is really important. So it's not just Schneider, but it's also their raw material suppliers as well, that they have sustainability initiatives that contribute to Schneider's own goals, right? Illumina works on focusing on recycling their packaging, so that they have reduced it by 90%. And there's a real cost savings to doing that, as well as impacting the planet positively. And then a few more companies here. Abbott is also listed in Fortune magazine as their #1 on the Change the World list. They also have significant recycling plans and ability with their packaging material. In Abbott, they have Pedialyte bottles, and those are recyclable, and they encourage folks to do that. Or in their Binex COVID test kits, they reduce the size of their packaging for that, which is allowing them to either ship more product on the same volume of truck, or they can use less trucks to ship the same amount because of the reduction in packaging there. And some other strong programs from Merck and Novo Nordisk and Thermo Fisher, just to mention a few that are high on that list. So that kind of concludes what I wanted to talk about today, whether it's both my career and or where I stand in helping companies with developing their sustainability strategy and how it impacts and can lead directly into profit. And so with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation portion, and I'll hand it back over to Annabelle, and we'll see what questions folks have.